We're going to go through today what's new in JuicedSign 3.0 functionality and tag-wise. We'll give you a live demo of all the things that we're going to talk about, and then we'll talk about what's next as well. So again, a lot of these changes are driven by you guys. So our customers who are early adopting customers of JuicedSign have given us some great feedback over the past couple of months. We released version 2 in August 1st, I believe, and we're already up to version 3 now in October. We got some really cool things that we want to go over today and do some live demoing. Just a note here, at 2:20, everybody's phone's going to go off. We didn't design that, obviously, but so there's a federal alert that's going to go out. So at 2:20, just in probably about 18 minutes from now, everybody's phone's going to go off. So, don't panic, don't run out the door. We'll try to ease in on that one. But okay, so what's new in JuicedSign 3.0? So some of the general enhancements that we'd like to share today. We've definitely increased performance. So we've been working hard to try to make sure that JuicedSign performs well. And we've thrown some more server capacity at JuicedSign. So now we've increased the number of core processors that are using the servers that we're using JuicedSign on, as well as we've re-architected some of the ways we gather the tag data and some of the other data from Quickbase. So we hope that you see an increase in speed. In our testing, we've seen a 3 times increase in speed. So we're pretty excited about that. Another general enhancement is another long-awaited feature is our JuicedSign batch processor will be released. And what does that mean? So really, if you want to automatically generate a document to be sent out via JuicedSign, you can use our JuicedSign batch processor to do that. So maybe you don't want to actually click the Send to JuicedSign button. Maybe you want to have the document send out automatically when a status changes on your record. Or maybe when you generate your Exact Forms Plus document and that date time field gets updated, you want the document to go straight out to your recipient because you're good with all of the tagging. You're confident that the document is exactly what you want it to be, and you don't want to waste time clicking a button to send it. That's what the JuicedSign batch processor is for. But more importantly or in addition, not only one record at a time, you can also, through grid edit, edit multiple records in one little grid edit session, and it will send out all of the records that you modified. So maybe you have a construction project that you're working on, and you have a bunch of POs that need to go out to your vendors. And once everything is set, you have maybe 5 or 10 vendors that need to get their POs. You can just go grid edit and pull up all of those PO records and just check a box to say send now. And when you hit send, it automatically sends out to those individual separate vendors. So it's not, it can go out multiple vendors, multiple purchase orders in one little single grid edit session. So we'll give you a quick demo on something like that. With adding more and more functionality, we've increased our error handling. So when messages do come back that maybe a tag doesn't exist, or maybe there's some data validation issues, that we're sending more errors back out to the senders so that you can appropriately make the changes and get things fixed so that you can send out that agreement appropriately. So tag-related enhancements. So we spend a lot of time on tags. So making our tags better. And we've only added one new tag for version 3, but we've added a lot of other functionality around our existing tags. So one new tag that we've added is the approve or decline tag. So this, again, is our new tag, and it's kind of like an internal approval. So maybe you have a document, or let's say you're creating a quote, and if the quote value is over $100,000, you want some internal approval to be made before it actually reaches your end recipient or your end customer. So you can drop an approval or decline tag so that internal approval person can just check a box and say, yes, I do approve this. And then the other recipients in line will get the document, or they can decline it, and then you can redo and maybe requote or so on. Maybe you added a discount that needs approval internally before you send that out. So that's a great tag. You don't have to sign. And again, that approval is not going to show to the end recipients. It's just really internal, and it's a great tag. You could use that as an external tag as well for recipients, but we see the big use case there as an internal approval mechanism. So that's like the extent of our new tags. But for existing tags, we're also going to allow you now in a text tag to default data into a tag from Quickbase. So in our last version, I think it was version 2, I'm not sure if it was version 1 or 2, but we introduced the ability for you to bring data back to Quickbase. So we gave you the ability to have the user enter some data and bring that back. But what if you wanted to prime that field with data from Quickbase before that user modifies it and brings it back? You can now do that with our QB default FID. So again, you put in a field ID, we grab the value from that field, we pop it into the document, and now the end recipient can see that and modify it, and we can also bring that back to Quickbase, their modification. So that's a very handy feature of an existing tag. And one that's really kind of a really cool feature that we're adding now is repeating tags. And we've had a lot of push, and I'm going to give Rich Godoy some credit here because he really pushed us on this one about the ability to dynamically create tags. You create one tag in your table, but you want to repeat the tag over and over again, but you don't really know how many times it needs to repeat because you might have one document that has 10 line items and you want an initial tag on each line item. But the next document you create might have 5 line items and another document might have 50 line items. So this is a way that we can allow you to set up one tag and we can repeat it as many times as it needs to appear in that document without your user or the person generating the agreement to have to know that ahead of time. So there's no pre-tagging here except for one tag, and we can repeat that over and over again based on the contents of the document itself. Very, very powerful, very cool tag, and we appreciate customers like Rich pushing us to get something like that done. Some other things we offer now is custom validation patterns using regex. So if you're familiar with regular expressions or not, you can always use ChatGPT for some help. I actually did that in one of the examples here. I wanted to put a validation around a text tag. So I'm pre-filling a tag going out to my recipient, and I want them to either change the value or not. But if they change the value, I want to confirm that the value that they're changing is in the format that I want them to enter it in. So instead of just entering text, I want to validate that text before they send it back to Quickbase. This is great also to be used for credit card processing. Maybe you have a credit card authorization form, and you want to make sure that the format of the number that they're entering into that conforms to the standard credit card validation patterns that you can use regular expressions to do that. So we have an example of that in our demo. And then another property that we've added is optional tags. So maybe there's a tag that in one case, in one quote, it needs to appear, and maybe in another quote, it won't appear. But you want to tag that ahead of time so you don't have to have 2 separate templates, one with the tag and one without it. We have a new checkbox called ignore if not present. So you configure that tag ahead of time. And if that tag doesn't appear in the document that you need to send out in one instance, if you have ignore if not present checked off, it will let that agreement go without that tag being present. And in another case, if it is there, it will allow it to go whether that box is checked or not. So that's an important flexible option that we have now for tags. Now, you can't have that turned on for a required tag. If it's required, it can't be ignore if not present. So they're mutually exclusive there. So you can't have required on and ignore if not present on. But we'll tell you that when we generate that agreement that you have an error like that. And last but not least, we're offering the ability to tag documents using page number and XY coordinates. So in our prior versions, all our tagging was done via anchor string. So what that means is you had to define a piece of text inside of your document that was going to be there all the time. And we would key off of that piece of text that we found, and we would drop a tag in an XY coordinate based off a displacement of that string. And now we've come across instances where we have some PDF documents that might have an image embedded in it. So really the whole document is an image, but it's a PDF image. And you really can't search through that because there's no actual text in there or text that we can search and find. In that case, now you can drop a tag on page 1 at XY and drop it right there. Or maybe page 10, or maybe page 20. And there's even a way that you can even use negative page numbers. So if you're not sure how many pages are in that document when you generate it ahead of time, if you put a negative page number in there, if you do -1, it'll always do the last page. If you do -2, it'll always do the second to last page. So it's pretty flexible in terms of tagging when you don't know if you have an anchor string present or not. So those are the changes that we're releasing. These will be released tomorrow, the latest. They're going to be out. Everybody's going to be upgraded to version 3. So before I jump into demos, are there any questions? Matt, is there anything we want to bring up that I missed?
Nope. It seems like you hit everything. We've definitely had some people in the chat asking questions about when the upgrade's going out. Just when can they start seeing these new functionalities? So I think you hit on all that. Manal also answered. So thank you, Manal. But excited to see the demo.
Great, cool. All right, so let's jump into the demo here. Okay, so we're in our demo application. This is the one that is open to everyone on the internet. So you can test some of these features on your own. But I'm going to jump in and do our batch first. So I have a quote here, and I'm going to take a look at my quote PDF. I pre-created some of these quote PDFs using Exact Fonts Plus just ahead of time, so we can save some time here. But obviously, this is the one we always use, and it has 2 signers that are required to sign in this document. But maybe I want to, instead of clicking, I'm going to edit this quote. And typically what you have to do is you have to click Send to JuicedSign, wait for this screen to pop up, verify the information, and then click Send to JuicedSign. But let's say you don't want to do that. So you want to do it maybe based on the status change, or maybe even a simple checkbox. So again, I don't have to click this button if I'm using the batch processor. If I just click this checkbox or change the status or do something else that it makes sense to you guys when you want to use this, what's going to happen is when I save, here's the batch parameters. And again, we don't typically show this on the forms, but for demo purposes, we do. What's going to happen is when I save, an email notification is going to be sent to JuicedSign batch processor with these parameters, which are really the same parameters that are behind the button. So we're basically just sending an email to our batch processor and saying, go process this quote and send the document out for signature. Now, one important thing is you can't use captive recipient in batch processor. It's going to give you an error if you do. But in this case, I already have it set to remote. I'm just going to check this box. I'm going to hit save. Now, if there is an error, and right now I put these counters here just so you can see, I'm just going to refresh. Once that agreement is created, you'll see that we'll have a counter of 1 agreement created and recipients, and see how quickly that went, right? So we already have an agreement. Now, if I look on that record again, there's my agreement. There's my recipients. The first one was already delivered, and it went to our demo email address. Let me just pull that up. So again, this is quote 305. So here we go. We got an email so again, the batch processor ran without me clicking the send to JuicedSign, just by checking a box and hitting save. So now the recipients in line are going to get their email to sign off. Now, I've been doing a lot of testing on my machine, so I got to open this in an incognito window here just so I don't have any session issues. But so I'm opening this document up to be signed. Let me open this bigger. I agree to the terms, click continue. Click start. Again, I'm the first recipient. I'm just the internal approver for Juice Tech. I'm going to sign off. And it's the typical same process. It's as if I click that orange button to say send to JuicedSign. I'm just going through this process here. Just refresh the screen here. So we should see that the first signer did complete. The second signer is getting their email now, which again, that's me. Let me just pull up my email again. So there's my other signature or signing request. So again, this is normal JuicedSign that you guys who are using JuicedSign see every day. Nothing's changed here. So this is the customer now. They have to sign off. They're clicking to sign off on that they agree to the value. And if they click next, we'll come down to sign off and finish. So really the only difference here is that when we did our send process, we didn't actually click send. We checked the box and sent it. And now the same process is going on. Our JuicedSign process in the background is going to create the document certificate and also save the signed document back. But what I wanted to show you before that finishes I'm going to go back in here. Remember before I said, well, what if I wanted to send more than one? I don't want to just check off one. I want to go into a grid edit mode and I want to send out two. So we have another quote 306 and another one 308. So I want to actually grid edit and I want to send all of those out. So I would just come in here and click on grid edit. I'm going to send it to this one and this one and hit save. So again, we don't have the agreements created yet, but let's just refresh and see when they do get created. Okay, the first one's created. They're both created. Again, they're the same document, really. It's just it's a different quote record. So there was two recipients on those. And again, it's just the same process, except we didn't click buttons to create them. So if you had a list of like I said before, if you have a project record that had 10 POs that needed to go out, you would grid edit and just click those 10, hit save, and our batch processor just gets fired to actually send those out. And just to give you a quick look at the email notification itself that did that. Here's our email notification. And all I did was I said, when that checkbox is checked, send the parameters. That's the single record version, but multi-record version does the same thing, except it's going to send the JuicedSign parameters to the batch processor for every record that met the grid edit criteria. Oh, and there goes the alerts. So if you got an alert, I guess something's working out there, as well as JuicedSign. But anyway, so here's the way that you set up that email notification for grid edit purposes when you want multiple documents to be sent or created using JuicedSign. It's very simple. So we use the same email notification to handle single record, and we use that again to handle single and multi. And it's really sending the same batch parameters field, and it's just going to send two emails to our process instead of one. That's how that works. Don't want to make any changes there. So that's our batch processor. Very excited about that one. It's very handy. Again, it can be on any change that's made to your record that can fire off that document, whether it's the document being created or whether it's a checkbox being checked or a status being changed, however you want to drive that. Okay. So those are the first couple of use cases. So I have another use case here where I want to show you that default value. So I'm going to send a piece of data from Quickbase down to a document. And I also want to use my regular expressions to validate the data that the person's entering and bring it back. So let me just show you that quote. So I already created the quote with Exact Forms Plus. And basically, I have a tag here that I'm going to show the subscription frequency on the quote. And I'm going to prime it with the value that's on the record. And I'm going to allow the recipient to change that value if they like. And I'm going to have a regular expression to check to make sure the value that they're sending is valid. So let's take a look at that record. So here I have a drop down that has monthly and annually. And you know what? Let's send monthly down. Just going to save that. And let me just go to the template. So we're using template number 7 here. Let's just jump over to the template and look at the tags. So here are the tags. And here is my tag that's going to be populated with data from Quickbase. So here, here's my regular expression. So basically, I use ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT, can you give me a regular expression pattern that will validate that the user's entering either monthly or annually and no other values? And ChatGPT told me, well, use this as your validation pattern. Pretty cool. And also here's a message. So if that person doesn't enter a valid value, you're going to see that message pop up right inside of the agreement. So it's pretty cool. So right now I have my frequency tag. It's a text tag. And here's that other field here that we talked about. I'm defaulting the value from field 41 into this tag. And also, if the recipient changes that value, I'm going to bring it back into that same field. So let's take a look at field 41. This is field 41. It has the value of monthly. So what that means is when that recipient gets that document, it's going to have the value of monthly, and I'm going to allow them to modify it. And their modified value is going to come back in here. And because this is a drop down, it can't have a value other than monthly or annually. So that's why I'm doing that. Okay, so let's create this one. But there's going to be one error, and I'm going to leave that happen. I'm gonna actually preview this to show you the error that's going to come up. Okay, I also introduced that new ignore if not present. Okay, so right now, I have ignore if not present off. So what that basically means is that tag was supposed to be in there. So if that tag isn't in there and you don't have ignore on, it will give you an error like that. So let's go back in here and let's fix that. So I'm going to go back to my template. And I'm going to change that. Oh, that's not the one I want to change. Sorry about that. Let me just go back. No, not present. Here it is. I put a tag in there that says it's going to look for a text tag, and it's going to look for a specific value called ignore tag. I don't have ignore tag in there in that document at all. So it couldn't find that string. So I didn't have this checkbox on, so that didn't work. So once I check this on and I click save, the next time I try to preview this or generate it, it's going to pass validation because it said, well, in this case, maybe ignore that tag is not in there, but you made it an optional tag. So that's why it's going to allow it. Okay. So that's the point of ignore if not present. So let's go through this and let's actually create the agreement, and let's check out our default value and bringing it back with a validation. So let's click send to JuicedSign. I'm not using a batch processor in this case. I'm going to do a captive recipient first, and I'm going to do a second remote recipient. So again, the first person is going to sign off. And really the only thing I needed my first person internally to do is sign. Say, yes, I do agree to sign this and send this out to my customer. Okay, great. So now the next recipient in line is going to get this document, and that's my email address again. So let's go to my email. Okay, so I got a new email to sign. I'm going to click to review and sign. Okay, so look, so field 41 had monthly in it, and it just primed that value with monthly. So the real value of using the default FIDs is to prime data that maybe you want your recipient to modify or interact with. Like obviously ExactForms Plus can populate data into this document. So the question is, why do you need to use this type of a tag? Because you can pull data from it into the document with ExactForms Plus. Well, I can't modify this, but I can modify this. So maybe I want to, oh, wait a second, I just typed something wrong. There's my validation. So my regular expression said monthly or annually are the only valid values in this document. So it won't accept any value other than that. So it's a way to stop bad data to get back into your Quickbase application. So let's change this to annually. Passes validation. I have a PO number here too. So this is just another piece of data I wanted to gather from my recipient. And I also want the person to sign off. Let's choose a different signature this time. Finish. Okay, so that's that piece. That's that test. Let me just go back in here and see that. Look, we actually changed that. Remember, that was monthly. So field 41 had the value of monthly. Now it has annually. So now that's a way that we can take data that we pushed out using our QB default FID. We allowed the recipient to look at that data and change it if they wanted to, and we brought it back. And we made sure that it was a valid value that's in a text drop-down box. And again, all that data is coming back. I'm just not jumping into the documents here. Because again, our batch processor runs behind the scenes to go recreate the document. and the agreement certificate. I can click on this a couple more times. It probably takes anywhere between 30 seconds to 45 seconds. But again, we could just keep refreshing.
Yeah. And Keith, one thing I always say when I'm demoing this to clients is in a real world scenario, you're not babysitting this record like you are right now, waiting for that to come back. In all likelihood, you're on to the next task and you likely will receive an email exactly when it's created. So Keith, you clicking this back and forth, you'll probably get an email at the same time saying, hey,
Yep.
it's done. You look
Yep.
like me right now, clicking.
No, in demos, it's always frustrating because I want it to come back. I want like the magic wand to just and
Wow.
bring it right back, but it doesn't. But anyway, it
Reality.
usually takes, it usually doesn't take any more than a minute or two to bring it back. But again, that's really dependent upon the traffic on our servers as well, because there's another batch process. It's actually using Exact Forms plus batch process to regenerate that certificate and bring it back for us. And Manal's probably watching the service to see why it hasn't come back yet. Let's look back at some of the other ones though, make sure they came back. I'm gonna look at one of the first ones we did. Let's see if that one came back. That one didn't come back either. Well, moving on to the next one, we'll come back and check out those when we're done here, but I wanted to show this one because this one's the really cool one. Again, Rich, thanks for pushing us on this one, but here's where we have a document that I generated it again with Exact Forms Plus. And this document here has a bunch of line items on a quote. And I want the end recipient or my customer to initial that they agree to the price of every one of those. But before I even want to do that, I want that first recipient, which is going to be internal, to approve or decline this value. So obviously it's a low value just for testing purposes here, but an approved decline tag is going to come up here for my first recipient to say, did this come? Or did this work? Is this a value that I want to go out to my customer? And when it does go out to the customer, you're going to see that there's multiple initial tags that are going to appear here. And I'm going to do this again too. And I'm going to add another line item so that we can see that it's dynamic and it's not a hard-coded value. So right now I'm going to do 4 initial tags. But later on, I can add another value to this quote, regenerate it and resend it out, and it'll generate another tag without me having to retag a document. So that's what we're talking about, dynamic repeatable tags. All right, so I'm just gonna go right to send to JuicedSign. So the document's in the file attachment field. I'm sending it out to support. I'm sending it out to me. Again, the first person is me, the sender, and I'm gonna have to approve this to send it out. Now, there's the approve and decline tags. So that's one of our newest tag. So I can either approve this or decline it. And if I decline it, it acts like just as if I did this, right? It's going to ask me for a reason, and it's going to void this agreement and basically say, no, you need to approve that again before you can send it out, or you need to make a change to that before you send it out. So again, if I decline it and I continue, I have to give a reason for the decline, just like a regular decline. Okay, so let's just do that. So let's say, value not approved. So I'm going to decline that. So what's happening now is we're going to update the agreement in our JuicedSign app as well as in the client's app. And basically, I declined this as the first recipient. So my second recipient's not going to get anything here. My first recipient declined it, and look, the value came back, just as if I declined it through the normal decline process. Okay, but so let's send it again though. Let's do this again. So again, and the second recipient is not going to get anything. They don't even know that's why it's a good internal process. The second recipient or the customer is not going to know that we declined anything and we didn't internally approve something. Maybe we didn't internally approve a discount or the amount. But now let's say I adjusted it and everything is good and I want to approve that. So let's do this again. So now internally, I'm going to say, yeah, I do approve that value. And notice these will not appear inside the end document that goes to the customer or even in the final document. We track this in a history in our certificate of completion later on, but you won't see this going back to the customer. And again, there's no sign off needed because I'm approving it. So there's no reason for me to have a signature, and I don't want that signature to appear to my end recipient. So you'll also see here, so the new agreement came in and I completed my process and I approved it, right? So now I should get an email. Heard the email go off. Okay, so here's my email for repeating tags. So let's go in there, open it up. Now again, I'm the customer and I'm going to sign off. I don't see that approved decline because I didn't want to, but look at that. I have 4 click to initial. So now I can, if I agree as the customer that I'm willing to pay $99 for JuicedSign, I'm going to click initial and I'm going to choose my initial. And now I can click any one of these. I don't see that pop up again. It's just taking my original signature that I selected. And I can deinitialize them, deinitial, and click them again. And then I can finally click to approve my signature. So again, 4 initial tags, repeating dynamic tags. I'm going to show you dynamicness because I'm going to create this code again, and I'm going to add a couple more in there. But this is the cool piece, is that we're able to generate repeating tags. Now, what I also want to show you is for that template, let's go to that template. It's template 31 here. So let's go to that template and look at the tags. Here's my recipient too. There's only 1 initial tag. There was a signature, a date signed, and 1 initial tag, but we generated 4 just by that 1 being in there. Okay, and we keyed off of something called JS inits. Let me show you what I did with that. So I have an anchor string called JS inits that is supposed to appear inside of that template. You guys didn't see that. Inside of this line item, I have a field called JS inits, I called it. I wanted that to appear inside of the document itself. So really, let's pull up the PDF. So in this PDF, I have a column here. This is really my JS inits field. Okay. I just overrode the column header using Exaforms Plus to say initial. And what I did was, let's take a look at the formula there. I made a white field, white font with the word JS inits. So now in this document, if I really try to find JS inits, it's there. It's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. It's in there, but it's hidden. Nobody can see it. But I use that to anchor my tag. So that's why when I do this again, and let's say I add another quote item. And let's add another one. So what I'm going to do is I added 2 quote items. So now we're going to have 6 instead of 4. I'm going to recreate my Exaforms Plus document. Let me just delete the existing one, recreate that one. So I'm using Exaforms Plus to generate that document again. We should see 6 line items instead of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not changing any of my tags. So the tags are still in the document the way they are. And I had 4 before, I have 6 now. So let's recreate that. Again, my first signer is captive. No change for that signer because the only thing is it went down a bit, so the value changed. So I'm still going to approve that. But now when my second recipient receives the email, I just got it. So now 6, I didn't have to retag anything, didn't have to add another tag. Everything is the way I wanted it to be. Just going to check off all of these values. Click to sign, done.
Now, Keith, this might be a
Repeating
silly
tags,
question.
very powerful. What, Matt?
This might be a silly question, but let's say they didn't want to approve one of the line items. Would they have to decline the whole document?
Yes, good question. So you could have not checked off one. So if someone's going through that, I don't agree with that value. Okay, I'm going to decline. So you have to decline it because technically you're going to have to regenerate the sender or the person quoting is going to have to regenerate that to change the value. Now, what we will be introducing later on, maybe another version, probably 4.0, is the ability to actually you put a text box next to each one of those values, and maybe have the end recipient enter a value in there and bring that back.
Right.
That could regenerate the quote using the Exact Plus batch processor and then resend it out. So those are some things that we're going to have plans for the future. But it, yeah, so the person would have to decline that agreement if they don't agree to those values.
Got it.
Question. Okay, so let's go back to our use cases. So I did all of those. So the very last one that I wanted to go through is the XY coordinates. Okay. Oh, actually, I have the regex for CC auth form. Let's do that one. So again, this is using regex, but a little bit more on the complicated side. So I have a document. Yes, I have a document. So here's my PDF. It's a credit card authorization form. I have a bunch of tags that I want. I left these out here just so you can see. We're using hidden tags, so we're hiding these with white font. In this case, I didn't hide it with white font, so you will see it. Obviously, if you're using these, you want to hide them. And the way to hide them is use white font inside of your Exact Fonts Plus document template. Okay, so there's a form. I have all these fields I'm going to want filled out. So I'm going to send that. And I should get an email on that one. There we go. Again, we have a bunch of tags here. We have some validation for our credit card. I'm not going to finish this one, but like here we have, again, regular expressions that are asking us to enter values properly. So we have two regular expressions here, and neither one of the values I entered match them because expiration date should be in the format of like 11 dash slash 22. Then it will pass. The validation of the credit card number is a little bit more complicated because we have a more elaborate regular expression where it requires a certain pattern to be entered based on the credit card company's values in their numbers. So it always has to start with a 4, and then there has to be another 15 characters. So then it passes. So again, this is the power of regular expressions inside of these tags so that you can validate the data and not let somebody send something back to you that has values like this inside of it. So it's the power of regex validation patterns inside of our JuicedSign. So I'm not going to even finish this one. I want to jump back to our last use case, which was the XY coordinates inside of a document. So here I have another test case where I have a construction diagram. It's a kitchen. And my design documents always come up with this on the right panel. So that's good because there's some consistency there. Obviously, this kitchen design is going to be different for every one of my customers. Maybe I have a bathroom design, maybe a bedroom design. But on the right-hand side here, I always want my signature to be here. So that's static. So that, and this is only one page. So I'm going to say I need one page. On my first page, I want my signature to drop here in these coordinates. And again, I can't key off of any of these because this is an image inside because I had maybe a CAD drawing that popped that out and created this. But I need to be able to tag this, and I can't use anchor strings. So let's just go to that template quick. I'm going to go to that tag. So I only have one tag here, and I want to use XY coordinates. So what I'm saying is I want a signature tag. And I want that signature tag to appear on page 1, and in X position 98 and Y position 283. Now I just played around with that a little bit to get it to line up properly. And one of the ways I did that was I basically just used the preview. So when the preview came up and I chose my recipient, I'm going to blow this up a little bit bigger so you can see it. Okay, so here's where the tag is going to land, but I'm going to move this over here. One way you can do this is you can just come over and tweak these things a bit. So if I do this and I say, well, maybe I want it to be on 290. This time I have the screen and I come in here and hit refresh. We're going to add a reload to this, but you just have to kind of refresh it. But now when I view this, see how I dropped it? Obviously, I don't like that. So let's move it back. But that's one way, that's the way I do it when I'm tagging my documents. That's what I do. I keep my tags table open on one window, and I put my preview on another one, and I just keep tweaking it around. So now that I made that change, I'm going to bring this over. Here's my form, my preview. Just going to do a reload on this. Recipient. Back to where it should be. That's one way to actually use the preview to help you determine where you should place things within the document. So let's get this going. Let's send this one out. I'm doing this in captive, so we don't have to wait for the email. I just did that to save time, so I don't have to wait for an email. Let's open this up. Agree, continue. There's my tag. So again, let's just blow this up a bit here. See it? There's my tag. Click the sign, choose. So now again, I didn't have to worry about an anchor string. I just did XY coordinates on a PDF that had an image embedded in it. So that is that. So I think I hit all of my test cases. Let's go back to here. So that's the test cases. That's everything that we're releasing in our version 3 of JuicedSign. So we have obviously a couple of existing customers that are on version 1, and maybe they're on 2 or 2. I think we had 2.1 or 2.2. I forget what we had. But anyway, we have a link on to a website. Justin, you can drop this in the chat if you can. Basically, what that'll land you on a page that'll say if you're going from version 1 and you need to go to version 3, first thing you should do is let us know, because version 1 to version 3, we have to get involved in that. Version 2 to version 3, you can do it on your own, because we're going to upgrade everybody on the back end ourselves. And all you have to do is add a couple of little things into your application, which is it's pretty simple. It's not major changes. So if you look at the help site, you'll see that you can add you have to add 2 new fields to your tags table and 1 new value into your dropdown. It's that simple if you want to take advantage of these changes once we upgrade you on the back end. Version 1 to version 3, it's a little bit more changes we have to do on our side, but we spell them out on our help site, and you contact Matt or someone from support on our team, and we'll get you up and running there. So that's version 3, but we're not stopping there. We have a lot of momentum going with JuicedSign. We want to continually add value to our customers as well as to our add-on. So we have a couple more things that we plan on releasing within the next couple of months. Some of these are roadmap items for future. Maybe they might be 3-6 months down the line, but we do have a roadmap for future. We're not just short term. So we're always thinking about how we can make this better. So from an agreement creation standpoint in the future, we show you how grid edit works. But now maybe we want to let you pass in a report ID or a query to identify the records that you want to send to the batch processor. Instead of using grid edit, maybe you want to do it through a report. And maybe you want to schedule the creation of those documents. These are some ways we're going to automate the creation without having to click that button to generate those agreements. We'll also be supporting text and Excel. Right now, we just support Word doc and PDF. We'll also allow you to save those documents into another Quickbase table. So either use them originated from another table and save them back, or vice versa. And also to other cloud services like S3, Dropbox, and Google Drive. We have some new tag options that we want to offer. We don't support these now, but we plan on supporting them in the near future. So radio buttons, a drop-down list, a multi-select drop-down list, grouping tags together so that if you have a name tag and you want that name to appear 10 times in the document, if you group them together when we land the first one, it'll repeat that. It's almost like repeating tags, but it's a little different because it's going to prime the value inside of those those tags properly. Checkbox tag, notes and comments. So we'll use this to be able to have a little bit of back and forth communication with your end recipient so that they can give you a little bit more information about what they agree or don't agree about with that document. We'll give you the ability to attach files, file all files, and maybe change the label on a tag. So right now it says click to sign. Maybe you don't want it to say that. Maybe you want it to say sign here. So right now we don't offer these things, but we will in the future. We'll allow you to change, add or delete recipients in an in-process agreement. So if it's already been sent out and you need to make a change midstream, we'll allow you to do one of those three things. And then we have some more security features that we're looking to add. So we're going to add a timeout. So when that JuicedSign UI pops out to sign, if you don't sign after a certain period of time, it'll just time out. You have to re-click the button in your email. We're going to offer two-factor authentication via SMS. So if you want your recipients to actually have to get a text message and enter a value before they can sign, it's another level of security so that we know who they are, and you can validate that through two-factor authentication. Recipient access code, so you can predefine a code that you want your recipient to use when they sign. So it's similar to 2FA, but they're not getting a message through SMS. Maybe there's some code you always want them to enter, something like that. And that could be very variable on your side. And in the future is signer identification. So really trying to authenticate whoever that person is signing on the back end. So again, these are some of the things that we plan to do, to implement within the near future. For those who don't subscribe to JuicedSign right now, here's just some pricing information. And we did a little comparison if you are a DocuSign customer. Or this is similar to other services like Adobe Sign and some of the other ones, but our pricing is not per user. We give you 5 users to use JuicedSign for $99 a month if you pay annually, and we give you up to 300 agreements per month, not per year. So that's 3,600 annually. Okay, so just a quick comparison here is if we look at how DocuSign prices things. Number one, they do price per user. So it's $40 per user per month. So if you had 5 users in that same scenario and you wanted to generate 50 agreements a month, DocuSign is probably going to cost you around $300. And that's assuming that they're charging you $2 an envelope. Our pricing comes out to about, what, 33 cents an agreement, Matt?
Yes.
Around 33 cents an agreement. Whereas DocuSign is charging maybe 2+ for their envelopes. Now, obviously, DocuSign is a world-class billion-dollar business, so they can do that, and we're not. But that's where that levels the playing field for us, because now we can come in and we can offer our customers something that's maybe a little bit more realistic, especially for Quickbase use, and still get a very strong product. If you've used some of our other add-ons, you know that we put out some world-class products ourselves. We consider them world-class. Maybe other people like DocuSign wouldn't, but we do. And we're proud of the services that we offer, and we have roadmaps for all of our add-ons. So we're continually upgrading and making sure that we're adding functionality and adding security and adding robustness into all of our add-ons. So again, this is a great comparison here. If you have a DocuSign renewal coming up, you might want to rethink, and see if maybe JuicedSign could be an option for you. So
we're not a billion-dollar company, Keith?
No, not yet.
I do want to open it up though for questions. I know we only have about 10 minutes left. I've actually gotten a lot of volume in the chat today, so I appreciate everyone who's been reaching out with several different questions. Keith, just to touch on, because I know these questions came up. One, for the initials, when we have the several initials, the ability to not have to sign all those, is it possible, and I believe it is, to use text tag types instead, which are optional, so they can approve technically or say yes and go down and only write yes for the ones that they want?
Yep.
So they don't have to use initials for now.
It's a great option. Yes, you can do that. And you can validate, you can also use validation patterns to make sure they only enter in yes or no, or approve or disapprove.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
so that can help you, you know, and as well as bring, the problem is we can't bring those individual pieces back to QuickBase yet, meaning, because that's on the subtable. So in that use case, we have quote and we have quote items. We can't bring back just yet the information entered on each individual line item. So what you just, yeah, so now rethinking that through, that's going to be a future version. You can do that now, but you're not going to see that back in QuickBase, unfortunately. The QB update fit is not going to work because,
Right.
again, that's our line items table. We don't know how to bring that back yet,
Right.
but we have plans to do that.
Okay. All right. That's
Good
good.
question, though.
Another question I got in the chat that I believe I answered correctly is are we HIPAA compliant at this time?
The HIPAA compliance is a lot of HIPAA compliance is based on the end user, or meaning the person building the QuickBase application and so on. All of our services run on AWS, which is HIPAA compliant. So from that standpoint, we conform to HIPAA compliance. Okay, but the way you conform internally to HIPAA compliance is the way that you go about securing your data that you're storing inside of your application. So so Todd, I don't know if you can add any value on that one.
Well, we're also SOC 2, so we're SOC 2 compliant as well, right? So we've taken all the proper steps to do that. HIPAA is a little more tricky again, like Keith said, because it involves a lot more on the QuickBase app side as well. You know, and then you'd want to employ some of the options that we're going to have for authenticating further for a user.
Yep.
Which gets you that, you know, even further down the road. But you know, we can sign a BAA if needed. We've done that in the past.
Rich said approve or disapprove per line in the future. Multiple.
Yeah, again, we have to tie that, let's say, action by the recipient to the line item record. Like if you didn't have it as line items, like if you had, which is a poorly designed QuickBase application, so I don't recommend this, but if you had all of those values, line items, let's say, on one table, we can bring them back now, but that's a poorly designed app. So we're working on making sure that when those tags are generated on the line items, that when you action each line item, we bring it back to the line item. So in that case, whether we do a initials tag, an approved tag, a text tag, whatever we put on that line item, we're going to bring it back to that line item so that you get that right back into QuickBase. So it's definitely on our roadmap, and that's something that we will be looking to implement soon, very soon.
Right. Any other questions? I know Rohit's in the chat saying that the radio buttons and checkboxes will work in that use case in the future. I agree with that. That makes sense to me. Does anyone else have any questions while we're still here? We have about 5 minutes left. We'd be happy to answer them. If you are more introverted, please feel free to put it in the chat. And then lastly, as mentioned by Keith, if you guys would like to go over how to update your app, some people on this call actually are on version 1 and version 2. I know that for sure. If you guys need help updating to version 3 or even going from 1 to 3, please reach out to me. I included my email in the chat, and I'd be happy to get you guys up to date. I probably will be reaching out to you individually as well.
One more thing I wanted to point out before we leave. Here's some great metrics, right? Just for the couple months we've been working with JuicedSign. This column here, agreements that have been completed within the under 24 hours, under 1 hour. That's incredible. If you can get agreements signed and approved in less than 24 hours, think about how much streamlined your workflow and your business is, getting these agreements done, back in your hands, approved, ready to go. So now you can do your work. So you're taking all of that red tape out, sending it out to somebody, having them print it, sign it, scan it, send it back, FedEx it back, whatever they were doing. That is truly, truly valuable. And these are just metrics that we can't wait to see this grow incredibly. but that's helping you get your business done through an automated tool like e-signatures JuicedSign.